What is going on YouTube? Today I'm going to give you a little tutorial on something that, well, some people get a little bit pissed at. I mean, you got these small fountains you can get at Walmart, used to be Herberger's before they shut down, basically anywhere. Now, one of the problems they have, especially if you go like with me, I found this at a thrift store for $5 and thought, hey, that looks cute, I'll get it for my wife. Pump burnt out. Now, most people would go, hey, let's just toss it, it's not worth it. But here I'm going to show you how you can usually fix any problem required with this thing for under $3. These can run anywhere from $10, $12, $20 easily. So a little $3 fix, might as well save it. We don't need to contribute to that society of throwing shit away. So without further ado, here's the setup I've got. You can see this kind of resembles the fountain. Now what happened here is, this is the original pump. Now what I did is I did plug in the batteries into the bottom of this thing, dual power. Didn't work. So I plugged it into a power adapter, which I think I have still sitting down here. Either that or I put it away. Alright, I think I might have put it away, but it looks like a little box plug thing. It's got a little selector switch on it for different voltages. You can set it to what it says on the little plate back here. I tried that thinking, maybe the batteries are shot. Or the battery reader was shot. Well, that didn't work either. However, all the lights, as you can see by the little wires here, this thing's got a bunch of little LED diodes. There's one right there. They lit up. So, common basic troubleshooting denotes that, well, pump's shot. And sure enough, I pulled that little bastard out. Before I clipped the leads on it, I connected it to a 9-volt battery just to see if I could get it to pump, and nothing. I mean, this thing looks like it's had some better days. If you look in there, you can see there's just a little bit of rust. Hard to see in this light, but yeah, the pinwheel and there's got some rust around the pin. So what I did was I used a small precision screwdriver, because you can see the supply hose is right there, and it was cemented on with something. It was also cemented down to the bottom, but that was easy enough to take care of. And usually you will find these things wrapped in what looks like a piece of almost thin grade styrofoam. Kind of like the shit you find when you order stuff online. It's like really papery, tears apart way too easy, with a rubber band around it. Why that is? Well, you got me. It was the designer. But so what I did was I used a small flat blade precision screwdriver to slowly pry my way up underneath that hose, trying not to stretch it too much, because especially if she's old, she's brittle. It'll break apart. And I'd like to reuse that hose because it's kind of sealed into the top of the unit there. I mean, if you want to, you could probably, snip it off up there, maybe take some aquarium line, heat it to get it flexible, and force it over it and maybe zip tie it, but that's a whole hell of a lot of work, and even my tiny hands will not fit in that hole. So I opted for do as little damage as you can, reuse the pipe. Anyways, moving on to the main event. This little bugger, which you can see by the water, I just tested using a standard soup bowl and some water out of the sink. I got off of eBay for $3, shipping and everything included, just a little mini pump. However, you won't find it on eBay by searching for a mini pump. You have to search the internet, because when I searched for a mini pump, I came up with all sorts of stuff for people's septic tanks, and well, that's a little bit large. So I just searched Google and I popped up with a bunch of these. Now, as you see, as I said, I tested it because my theory when working on stuff like this is when you start getting it put together, test it between every little step. It's no use getting something put way back together just to have to pull apart again because something didn't hold. What I was testing was this little jobby right here, and I know this is horrible soldering, but you'll see what results you get when you're using hair thin wire, because these little wires, and I apologize for the shitty camera quality. Let's see if I can get it to focus. I cannot. But the wires that are in that thing, as you can probably tell by the receptacle on the old one, that there actually has 2 copper leads in it. So very, very tiny. I mean, there's my fingertip for a reference. So what I had to do is, the pump came with already some of the wire exposed. That was great. This, however, is the lead that was attached to the original pump. What I had to do there is kind of take an X-Acto knife, which, if you're like me and you're into electronics, you get pretty handy stripping wires with just the box cutter. But I took that and I shaved down some of the siding here until I got the 2 wires exposed. And then I was very carefully, because you have to kind of use your finger to brace the wire, and box cutter slices on fingers are not fun. You got to carefully just slowly and patiently shave off enough until you can get enough wire exposed to wrap the two ends. Now what I did is, since this was already exposed on the pump side, I actually shaved that down even further. Because, heck, you got this much room to work with. It's already painful enough working in a bowl. And you have all this lead here. So I shaved off about a good half, 3/4 inches. And I treated the copper sticking out of the original lead kind of as a stud. So I took the long wires and I wrapped them around this, and then I just barely bent over the edge of the top of this short wire here to hold it in place temporarily. Because all it's got to do is hold it in place while you solder it in. Then you just take your standard small soldering iron. I would strongly suggest a plug-in electric. I mean, butane torches are great. I use that thing for more than just soldering, but in an area like this, especially with the heat throw off, you run a big risk of either melting through or severely weakening the sides of these plastic bowls, which most of the fountains are plastic, as you can probably tell. It's not worth the risk. Any kind of micro soldering I always do with a pencil soldering iron, the kind you just plug into a wall. And that's what I did here. I just basically pressed it up against here, let it sit, usual soldering. Then take your solder, which I've still got sitting here, and just drift it onto the wire. Now these, since they're small wires and they're such a long lead, don't heat up very fast. So I ended up doing it the cheater way and drifting the solder down the tip of the pencil soldering iron. Because right when you hit solder against the tip of that thing, it basically turns liquid instantly. I basically use that to drip seal it right on here. Now after you get all this done, so far, what I just did before I decided, hey, I should probably put this on YouTube to help some people out, I put the batteries in the battery pack down here, held the wires apart, and then threw that in the bowl and hit the switch just to see if it works, and hallelujah, the pump finally works. Now before I put this all in, as you'll probably notice when you looked at the pump originally, it was all a sealed unit. There is no electrical wire shown whatsoever because this is going to be full of water. So how do you waterproof that? Many different ways, but given how small it is and how strapped I am for cash at the moment, I'm doing it the cheap man's way, which is the good old-fashioned hot glue gun. Best way to waterproof something that's